Is he coming back by taxi now?
He's coming. Suha is bringing her.
Okay. I'll shut the front door, but I'll leave the side door open. Okay. Oh, excellent. Yeah.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. I'm sorry we are a little late. One of our Swamis was admitted to the hospital, so I had to make some arrangements to bring him back. So somebody has gone to bring him back to the center. So that's why we are a bit late. So anyway, we were discussing the attitude of a sadhaka in the life of an incarnation of God. So Swami Shardanji says, we had the blessed opportunity to be in the holy company of the Divine Master. And what they were surprised to see in that wonderful life was a wonderful coexistence of both aspects of divinity and humanity in him. Now, this is a very important point one should remember, because if when we approach most of the divine characters, most of the divine incarnations and the mythological characters or mythological deities, we see there is an element of supernatural in them, and that makes most of the people, rational people, they find it difficult. They say, of course, for an incarnation everything is possible. They can exhibit superhuman virtues, superhuman capacities to do sadhana. We are ordinary people, we are worldly people, and we don't have that kind of capacity to emulate them. We cannot even do 1/16th of what they do, 1/100th of what they do. No doubt it is true, because they are born with that capacity to do superhuman sadhana. But at the same time, Swami Shardananji very clearly says they have an element of humanity in them. In the sense they are intensely human, with all the weaknesses, with all the passions that a normal human being has. And they, of course, they struggle to overcome them, and they are more successful, or they are successful in doing that. And in the process, they show to us that in spite of all the human limitations, in spite of all the human weaknesses, people can do and can definitely attain to great heights as they did, because they also exhibit their human side as sadhakas. They say that we are, when the incarnations come, they also try to exhibit all the human characteristics so that human beings can identify themselves with those characteristics and overcome them just as they did. So when they do sadhana, when these incarnations, when they enact their divine play, that is why Sri Ramakrishna's divine play, Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, literally, if you translate the book, it is Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play, Leela Prasanga. So when they enact their divine play, they take care to see that there is something worthy of being not imitated, emulated, or people get some inspiration that if one human being can do this, definitely we are also human beings, we can also try to do that. So Swami Shardanji says, the more we have contemplated his life and character, the more we have been convinced of the fact that in him both the divine and the human existed side by side. He says, if we had not seen him, if we had just believed in the scriptures, if we just believed in Sri Krishna, Sri Rama and all the characters, Buddha, then it would have been difficult for an ordinary human being who is struggling with his passions, who is struggling with his human qualities, human weaknesses rather, it would be difficult for any human being to even think that he can do what Krishna did, he can do what Rama did, he can do what Buddha did. He will create a sort of uh, create a sort of gap between the incarnation. It said this is beyond our capacity. So to see that their actions, their lives, their sadhanas, whatever they did in life serves as an inspiration for most ordinary human beings. They come down to the level of human beings. They exhibit the same weaknesses, they exhibit how one can handle all these passions and other things which disturb the mind, and they do sadhana in spite of all the difficulties, in spite of poverty, in spite of problems, health problems, in spite of so many illnesses. They practically exhibit the same characteristics. So most of the incarnations, you see, there was a struggle in their life. Though it is not highlighted in the case of Rama and Krishna, we just see his exploits. We see the greatness of their divine exploits, killing of Ravana, killing of all the Mahabharata war. We see that Krishna. We don't see the Krishna who struggled in the school, in the Sandipani Vidyalaya, where he, like Sudama, like all the other students, worked hard to learn, to practice sadhana, to develop certain characteristics or develop a character. All those things are not highlighted because the devotees very often want to give an impression that the incarnations whom they worship are not ordinary, they are extraordinary. No doubt they are extraordinary, but their struggles were ordinary. The way they handled the human characteristics with which they were born with that. They deliberately took upon themselves, the incarnation takes upon himself all the limitations of human beings, like sicknesses, like all the physical trouble, the mental trouble any normal human being would face in his life. And then he will show how to overcome them with a proper attitude. So he said, Swami Sardanji says that we could never get a clear conception that such contrary ideas of divinity and humanity could exist in such a sweet congruence and harmony in the same person. It's not that Sri Ramakrishna in a later stage of life is divine and in an earlier stage. The human characteristics remained with him till the end. In fact, that is why Swami Vivekananda felt when he was suffering from cancer and he was complaining now and then, he used to complain that I have so much of pain, he was feeling weakness. Somehow that idea came to Swami Vivekananda, because mind is doubtful. He said, is this body which I see in front of me, suffering body, can this body be divine? I mean, he had a lot of faith in Sri Ramakrishna, but suddenly a thought crossed his mind. Why is an incarnation suffering so much? Immediately, the moment he had that thought, Swami Sri Ramakrishna immediately sensed that and told Naren, even now you are having doubts. He who was Rama and who he was Krishna has been born as Ramakrishna and not in your Vedantic sense. So that means he's saying that you see all the suffering, you see all the struggle that I am undergoing, but that don't have doubts about the divinity of this particular body. In fact, Turiyananji had the opposite attitude. He had tremendous faith. So one day, Sri Ramakrishna, just to test him, he told Turiyananji, one of his disciples, his name was Harinath. So he said, Harinath, see how much I am suffering. They call me an incarnation, but there is so much of suffering, there is so much pain. I can't even eat. I feel terrible pain in my throat and terrible weakness. So then Harinath immediately remarked. He said, you may try to fool me, but I know I can see a picture of bliss in your heart. I can just see, I can read that Ananda Swarupa. I can read that joy, that bliss of the highest realization shining through you. Maybe you are trying to deceive me. Then Sri Ramakrishna was very much pleased. He knew this disciple had understood that what you see in the gross doesn't really matter if you have really touched the spirit. If you have touched the Divine Mother, if you have touched the Supreme Consciousness, then no matter what your body undergoes, it may undergo the same pain and same grief which a normal human being undergoes. But at the same time, these incarnations are aware simultaneously of their divinity. That is why Swami Shardanji continues. He says, it is because we observed it in him, in Sri Ramakrishna, that this conviction has grown in us that he was God and man in one. Sometimes they say God, man, but the idea is he, at will, the incarnation can exhibit the characteristic of a man, and on the other hand, now and then he will reveal his divinity. We saw in Sri Krishna's life also, he used to behave just like a child, stealing buttermilk, stealing butter, and playing all the pranks which young children normally do. And Yashoda wanted to consider him. She just treated him as her own child, not as a divine being. But now and then, Sri Krishna once opened his mouth and she had a vision of the whole universe in his mouth. And suddenly she was taken aback. What is this? Who is this child? But the moment she saw the Krishna just told her, oh, no, I am just your Gopala, Gopal Krishna. And she forgot all about his divinity and looked upon the child again as her own physical child, a young child, sweet child, and all those things. So, Swami Shardanji says, because we observed it very closely, the conviction has grown in us, had grown in us that he was God and man in one, and that he was exactly what the infinite being of God and his power are when manifested behind the veil of human body and feelings, human feelings. So, behind the mask of human body and human feelings, when God and his power manifest, they perform this Leela. So they could see on one side the struggle to do sadhana, the struggle to aspire for the highest, and on the other side they could also see his divine aspect. Now and then he would reveal his divine aspect, just as Sri Krishna did to Yashoda and many other people. In the Bhagavad Gita also, he was like a friend to Arjuna. But suddenly Arjuna wants to see his divine form and he shows the Vishwarupa. In the 11th chapter we are discussing in the Gita, the divine nature of the Lord was shown by him, but the vision was too much for Arjuna to bear. So he just withdraws it, says, no, let me take my human form again. And then Arjuna felt comfortable. Because when you see the divine form, as I said, we discussed in our Gita class, we can't accept only the pleasant. We have to accept God the creator, God the preserver, and God the destroyer. So he showed all the aspects. The Vishwarupa, Sri Krishna showed the total aspect of God. You can't cheat yourself by saying that God is always the creator and a very nice person. No doubt he is full of grace, but that grace is to raise you from the limitations of the gross. If you stick to the gross, then you will have to accept pain and pleasure. You can't say I'll have only pleasure and no pain. That is what these incarnations come to demonstrate. How to accept both pain and pleasure. When he had severe suffering he was having, he felt that if I pray to the mother, somebody told him, why don't you pray? So he just went to the Divine Mother to pray. That was also a divine play, but he in fact prayed, said, can you not make me cure me a little so that I can take some food. Normally he would not pray for himself, but he that day, he just to show us that how he could handle suffering, he just went and asked the Divine Mother, see, I cannot even eat. I'm suffering so much. Can you not relieve my pain a little bit so that I can push some food inside? Then he had a vision of the mother, and the mother said, are you not ashamed to ask this silly thing? Are you not eating through the mouths of everybody around you? And she gave him the realization that once you realize that Brahman, or once you are one with the Brahman, then you see yourself all pervading. So he said, can you not realize, have you not realized that you are eating through all these mouths? So then Sri Ramakrishna says, I was very much ashamed, and I never again asked Mother to cure anything, cure the disease or ask anything for himself. So the God and his power, when it is manifested through a human form, assumes all the difficulties but shows us how to transcend them, how to bear pain and pleasure, not be carried away by the pleasure and avoid the pain. That is what we do. When pain comes to us, we rarely try to face it. We try our best to remove that. No doubt it's necessary, because sometimes it can become unbearable. That pain can be physical or even mental. So we try to relieve it. For some time we get some relief, and then we enjoy the pleasure or enjoy the calmness. But again the turbulence comes, again the problems come. And the Lord comes and shows that unless you transcend it, both pain and pleasure, both heat and cold, both happiness and sorrow, because that is the nature of the gross universe, that is the nature of the world. So one has to transcend the world. So the lesson that the incarnation gives by having both the human and the divine aspect in the same body is to show how to transcend the physical and reach the spiritual. So he says, it is because we saw it that we have come to understand that he feigned neither aspect. For some people argued, he said it's all drama. The incarnations, they just show that they are suffering from pain. Perhaps his divine aspect was, he was always living in his divine aspect. So even if he exhibited, it was just a drama, he never had any pain. That is not true. He says they did not play act. No doubt it's a Leela, but that Leela is real Leela. When he suffered as a human being, when in a human body, he suffered just as any one of us will do. Only thing, he had more endurance, more titiksha, more strength to encounter all these things. But he felt the pain. Otherwise, why would he tell that, oh, my throat is paining? He was really paining, but they actually assumed human nature for the good of humanity and showed us the path leading to that divinity. How, with all the limitations, we can also become divine. We can also aspire to become divine. No matter at what stage we are, we can always resolve and make our way and become more and more spiritual and give up the gross as much as possible. Slowly but surely we will reach the goal. Again, Swami Shardanji says, it is because we saw that we have become convinced, we saw in front of our own eyes this whole Leela being enacted, that we became convinced that were certainly such wonderful manifestations of both these aspects in the lives of incarnations of the past ages also. So after seeing Sri Ramakrishna's life, Swami Shardanji says, we also tried to find out, did this phenomena happen in the previous incarnations? And they found, yes, it was true. Because even if you find, though there is not a detailed record of the sadhana of an incarnation, that is what Swami Vivekananda said. Unfortunately, the devotees of previous incarnations, they preferred to highlight the divine aspect of the Lord, and in the process they did not give their mind, or they did not bother so much about the human aspect, because they always wanted to see their God as divine. No doubt it is true that there is a divine aspect, but there is a human aspect, and it helps to study the human aspect. How Sri Krishna or how Sri Rama or how Buddha fought against all the human limitations, the human problems, the human illnesses, the different mental states that every human being has to undergo. How did they face? If there were to be a detailed description, as we see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, about other incarnations as well, there are definitely descriptions. But because over a period of time, over centuries, they were not given the importance, because the devotees felt, let us focus on the divine aspect. No, a biography, that is why Swami Shardanji was very careful to point out this truth, that they come to teach something. They come to our level to teach us how to face all these problems. So he says, though the incarnations of the past, we assume by seeing Sri Ramakrishna that even they would have had their share of trouble, their share of problems, which are not very often highlighted, but they are there. And maybe subsequent biographers, they would have omitted certain details. Because even in the life of Jesus Christ, they say we do not know many things about his sadhana. There's a small gap in his life. His childhood is there, but suddenly we come to a realized Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who goes on preaching. But before he started his preaching and after his student life, or maybe his childhood, the whole gap in between is missing. The description of the gap. How did he undergo the struggles? Fortunately, in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, we have a detailed description of every sadhana of his, thanks to the biography, minutely written, tested, verified by hearing several versions. Of course, Swami Shardananji was not witness to all the sadhana. He had not even come to Sri Ramakrishna when he was doing sadhana. But there were people whom they met, whom Swami Shardananji met, and who gave a very, very clear account. Most of the things of his sadhana, Sri Ramakrishna himself mentioned many times during his conversation with his disciples. Those they have recorded and again verified with other people who were actual witnesses to his sadhana life. So, Swami Shardanji says, if we shall meet with the same truth, what we see in Sri Ramakrishna, if we study with reverence the life of any one of the incarnations of God, only thing we have to study with reverence and know for certain that they had a human aspect as well. We have to research, do some reading into the different biographies that are available, where you will find the struggles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will find the struggles of Jesus. Somehow here and there you will get bits of information. In this case, everything has been meticulously recorded by somebody or the other, and finally it has found its way in the Ramakrishna Leela Prasang. So he says, we shall meet the same truth. What we see, the pattern of truth is the same. How they dealt with the human aspect, they came with the human and divine aspect together. And if we study with reverence any of the incarnations, Swami Shardanji says, we will come across the same truth. Now, we shall find that impelled by a wonderful unknown power. Now it is known as unknown because for ordinary minds, we do not know where they get the inspiration from. Even in our own lives, we hardly know how we are impacted by great spiritual people whom if we are lucky enough to come in contact. It is a silent influence, as Swamiji said in his silent like a gentle dew. When the dew falls, it doesn't fall like rain. It falls very silently and you see the whole ground wet. So the influence of spirituality or spiritual people is like the silent dew. They come into our life, these great people, And like the silent dew, they uh, wet the whole surface. We don't even know. In the morning, you see, though there was no rain, but somehow the dew drops we can find on the grass, on the leaves, everywhere. And you realize there was no rain, but still we see the dew drops. So, like the gentle dew, Swamiji says, the influence of the spiritual people is like a gentle dew. You get wet, but you don't know when you have got the grace of these great people, incarnations, and that is the benefit of satsanga. Now, since that power is apparently unknown, like the dew, you know the dew when you see the wetness on the grass, but before that you don't see actually the dew falling. It just, there is a fog like situation or atmosphere, ambience, and suddenly in the morning when the light, in the dark you don't see anything, in the morning you find there's dew all around. So he says they are sometimes in the same plane of consciousness as other human beings are. Now why this happens? How can they oscillate between the divine and the human aspect? See, they can raise themselves to a divine level, and at the sometimes they come down to our plane of consciousness. They think like us, they feel like us, they understand like us. That's why they can understand our problems. If a person has to sympathize with somebody who has a stomach ache, he should have suffered from stomach ache sometime in his life. Or if somebody has suffered from toothache, only he can sympathize with another person. If he had no toothache in his life, he cannot possibly understand what a toothache is like, how painful it can be. But since we have suffered once, we can sympathize with others. So that's why in the incarnation's life also, they behave like ordinary human beings. They deliberately come down to our plane so that they can tell us that, see, we are also suffering the same problems. Don't think because we are incarnations, we don't struggle. We are also struggling, and take inspiration from us. We are struggling, and see, this is how we handle the problems. This is how we solve the problems. So, they sometimes, most of the time they are in the divine plane, but sometimes they come down to the same plane of consciousness as other human beings are, and behave like ourselves with all the objects and persons of the world. Just as we interact with other people, they also interact. They also have their share of fun, they also joke, they also do many things which normal people do. But at other times, when they are not interacting at the human level, at other times, ascending to higher planes, they bring us information about the unknown. That is why Shruti Pramana, the Upanishads have value, because the people who have raised their consciousness, they can tell us, they can give us information of what spirituality, what the spiritual experiences are. If in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which we are discussing now on Saturdays, if the divine vision or the divine chakshu, the divine eye, the transcendental vision of the cosmic Ishvara was not revealed to Arjuna, he would not have seen it. So now and then the incarnation has the capacity to show us these experiences and give us the information of what is apparently unknown. What happens after death? What happens to a person when he dies? That was the question Nachiketa wanted to know. Whether the spirit survives, in what form it survives, these are genuine questions. And any person who takes life seriously has to take death seriously. He should inquire, not when he is about to die, not in a very old age, but like Nachiketa at the age of 14, he had pressing questions. He asked these questions. This is an unknown thing to me. But oh Yama, you know it because you are the king of death. So you are having that experience and you know for certain what is the experience after death. What happens to the soul after that? What happens to the Sukshma Sharira after that? How is a person reborn? So these are all unknown questions, and with the answers are unknown except to people who have raised themselves. So incarnations do a double job. They come to down to our level and show us how to lead a spiritual life, and now and then tell the people like us, ordinary people who do not have experiences, what is there in the unknown realm of the subtle universe, the universe of God, the universe of Ishvara. These are beyond our comprehension. So they bring us information of the unknown. Although they do not long for it, someone adjusts and arranges everything and makes them act that way. Now this is an important point. See, Swami Sri Ramakrishna, he just had to wish. He wished, oh, I want to do sadhana as Christians do, or I want to do sadhana as the Sufis do, the Islamic followers of Islam do. I want to do sadhana as Vaishnavas do. So he just had a desire, and somehow, miraculously, or you may say due to great wonderful fortune, some person comes and arranges. Like Bhairavi Brahmani came when he wanted to do the tantric sadhana according to the Vaishnavas. Bhairavi Brahmani came. When he felt like he should do Advait sadhana, he had heard from many people. He got a guru. Totapuri came. Similarly, so many other people came and taught him whenever he needed to be taught. Whenever he had to do any sadhana, gurus came to him. He did not run after a guru. So he says they don't actually long for it. That is why when Holy Mother was once asked, did Sri Ramakrishna do all these sadhanas to bring about harmony between all the different paths, that Vaishnavas should not quarrel with Shaivas, they should not quarrel with Christians and Muslims. Each path is correct. Did he practice all this sadhana to show to the world that all paths lead to the same goal? Holy Mother said, yes, that is a secondary thing, but that's not the main thing why he did sadhana. He said he just was very keen, very adventurous to do sadhana according to the different traditions. And she uses the word, he was like a spiritual glutton. People who love food, they want to eat different food. Though they are not hungry, they want to taste. They want to taste this, they want to taste that, everything. They are known as physical gluttons. Gluttons means those who like food, foodies. But Holy Mother said he was a spiritual glutton. He was not happy if he got realization through one path. He wanted to enjoy God through different paths. And that is how we got all the information. That is why Swamiji says, is a Hindu to become a Christian or a Christian to become a Hindu? No. A Hindu has to become a better Hindu. A Christian has to become a better Christian. That is what Sri Ramakrishna aimed at. He said, if you are a Vaishnava, it doesn't really matter. Be a better Vaishnava. See what Vaishnavism is. So he practiced that sadhana. Shaktas came to him, Brahmos came to him. So for everybody, his message was very simple. If you have the yearning, if you have the sincerity, you will reach the goal in your way. You don't have to change your path. You reach the same goal. So, although Swardhanji says, although they don't long for this, but somehow someone adjusts. The divine play is such that adjustments take place in the cosmos, and this incarnation or these incarnations, everything is adjusted, arranged, and they act in that particular way. And this happens right from childhood. He didn't go to school, but so many discussions took place. Somebody asked him, you have not read the scriptures, you have not read the Gita, you have not read the Bhagavata. How do you quote from all these books? He said, I have not read them because I didn't get a chance to go to, he didn't go to school. He may not have read it himself, but he said, how much have I heard? How much have I heard from others? So whenever God provided an opportunity, he listened very, very One thing, he was a very good listener. So they say there is a art of listening. It's very difficult. It's easy to talk, but very difficult to listen. He was a very good listener. So he says, do you know how much have I heard? And once he listened, he never forgot. So right from childhood, they get this opportunity and remember whatever they are told. They absorb everything. In child psychology, they say there is a period where it's known as the period sponge. Like a sponge, you absorb everything. You don't discriminate. You don't have likes and dislikes. Whatever is given to a child of a particular age, say 3 to 5 or 3 to 6, he has a tendency to just absorb, just as a sponge absorbs water. It doesn't reject anything, good water, bad water, everything it will absorb. So just like a sponge, these children, the divine arranges in such a way that Gadadhar had this opportunity even from childhood to come in contact with the greatest sadhakas of his period. Narayan Pandit, Gauri Pandit, Narayan Shastri, Bhairavi Brahmani, Totapuri, and that Ramayat Sadhu. So many people came to him. And these are all recorded. There are innumerable people, bowls who used to come and sing, used to listen to them. Everything was arranged for, as it were, for him. And that atmosphere was created. So that indication of power, the divine power, they exhibit right from childhood. As Sri Krishna did, as Sri Rama did, everyone were born with divine tendencies, but at the same time, like any other human being or any other child, they also had their share of education, their share of understanding things. Only thing, they made the right choices. They had the discrimination to choose the right thing because the right people came and taught them. It may be a coincidence, but that is what happens in the life of incarnations. If we are lucky, we also get, but many people don't even take advantage of all the good things that they somehow try to avoid when things are really available. They will somehow engage themselves in some other thing, even if the thing is coming to them as things, as people, as good thoughts. Everything came to Sri Ramakrishna. He was careful enough not to take the bad thoughts. So when his brother told him to earn some money and many things, he said, no, that is not going to serve my purpose. So he knew what to avoid and what not to avoid. Unfortunately, we don't teach our children to develop the power of choice, to choose what you should hear. But you see, Sri Ramakrishna knew what is the priority in his life. He chose to only hear those things which will help him in his spiritual path. He was very particular about that. That is true education. To know what to study, what not to study, and how to make use of what you have studied. That is real education, whether it is in the spiritual field or even in a secular field. One should be totally aware of one's goal, the choices he has to make. They are so important. One wrong choice and then you have to retrace your step to undo what you have done. That's why it's better to be very prudent. That is why Sri Ramakrishna, just because his father said or his elder brother said, do this, he would not do it. He will ask, will it help me to realize the goal of my life? If it doesn't, I will not do it. That is that power of exercising one's choice is the real part, the essential part of education, which we lack. The problem is that we do not lack information. We know so many things, but we lack the capacity to understand if we should really be learning things which are of no use to us. Are we going to use it? Are we discriminative enough? Do we have that kind of wisdom to choose the right thing at the right time, to make the right choices? So here, right from childhood, somehow some divine power adjusts everything and makes them act in that way. And they cannot, but getting as they do sometimes, an indication of the power they have in childhood. Every person, Sri Krishna, Rama, they somehow, though they had a human aspect, the divine aspect sometimes became very powerful and overpowering. That's why you can see the wonderful miracles in the life of all the incarnations. They did which ordinary children would not do. So though they have an indication of that power, divine power in them, right from childhood, they cannot, according to Shardanandji, they cannot detect and understand that it is their own. They feel that they are just instruments. That's why when Sri Ramakrishna was praised, he said, I don't know, it's my mother. When Hriday asked him, if you tell everything today, what will you tell tomorrow? All the people are coming because you speak so wise, speak these wise words of wisdom. But if you tell everything today, what will you have? Reserve something for tomorrow? That was his crooked way of analyzing Hriday. Then Thakur got very angry with him. He said, why do you bother? If mother wants, she will send me new knowledge tomorrow. So they are unconcerned. They do not try to force things. They just allow the divine power to flow through them. They know the wisdom is lying deep within. Thakur used to say, Ma ras thele diche. Ras means she just, if you see in the rural areas, when you are cleaning the rice or doing something, somebody from behind pushes heaps of rice. Then you process it, then somebody else pushes heaps of rice from behind. And that is how you work. So also Sri Ramakrishna says, Mother supplies me with enough ideas and knowledge whenever I want it. So I don't bother whether I should tell whatever I know, I just express. I'm not a person who thinks it is very clever to conceal certain information. Like many people, they keep many things secret. They don't want to share everything with others. They think if we give up all our knowledge, then we'll be left with nothing. That is the sense of egoism, that, oh, I have this kind of knowledge, I don't want to share it with others, it will become their property. So we are taught right from childhood not to share everything so that others will benefit from that. We are very selfish. But here, the incarnations don't bother. They don't withhold any information. Whatever the Divine Mother says, they just express it and they share it with others. So here Swami Shardanji says they demonstrate that they cannot apply this power. That's why when many times somebody came that, oh, you are, if you wish, I can be, some people with so many ailments and other things, a lot of difficulties, they used to come to Thakur and ask Sri Ramakrishna, can you solve this problem? You can do everything, you are all powerful. He said, no, what do I know? If it is mother's wish, you will be cured, or if it is mother's wish. He never took that responsibility. So that's why Swami Shardanji says, though they have that power, they don't use it in will in order to ascend to higher spiritual planes and see all the things and persons of the world in the light of the divine consciousness and behave with them accordingly. If that was the case, then they would be always looking, having the highest experience, and then we could learn nothing from them. But they now and then come down and show their helplessness and even express it in front of their disciples. See, I don't know, I can't do this. They assume the role of a child as if they are not talking to their disciples, but they are telling the helplessness. Many times you can see Sri Ramakrishna. He said, I don't know, see, my hand has broken, I have a fracture, it pains me so much. As a child, he is complaining to his disciples, whom he is supposed to teach. He assumes the role of a student, he assumes the role of a helpless student, and as if his disciple or the people around him are his teachers. So that is the lack of egolessness. He, though from behind the Divine Mother will solve that problem for him. He is not conscious of it. He hopes that by Divine Mother's wish, this problem should be solved. But he doesn't insist on it. We go to God with so many demands. They don't go. But they get these frequent experiences of power in their lives, the divine power percolating and helping other people. And day after day they see that the Divine Mother helps innumerable people. The cosmic reality or Ishvara acts through these incarnations in such a way that innumerable people are benefited, even if they may not wish. That is why Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel says that God's nature is like a child. Somebody asks him, he says, I'm not going to give you anything. And when he's tired, he will just take that toy and give it to whoever he sees. He is not calculative. We are calculative. We think if I give this person, what will I get back? So God is not like that. He is not calculative. Sri Ramakrishna says his nature is like that of a child. Sometimes you may feel, why he is showering so much of grace on this disciple, and what about, though we can explain it through the past karma, that because this past karma he deserved it and God showered his grace upon him, whereas the other person is struggling so hard but is not getting the desired result. Of course, it can be traced to some kind of old karma, but that is how God acts. That is how the divine power acts. As they get more and more, as these incarnations get more and more frequent experiences of that power, the divine power with which they are interacting with humanity in their lives day after day, a strong desire to be fully acquainted with it, with that power, arises in their mind. And it is this desire that endows them with a unique inclination and enthusiasm, and they feel like we should do spiritual practices. So you see, in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, though they don't need to do spiritual practices, they do. Because when they come to the human level, they want to show, can you have the kind of yearning I had? See, I become ignorant as you, and see how I overcome it by doing sadhana, by doing all these sadhanas. So why should you not do it? It should inspire you to do it. So that's why they willingly take up, and then the strong desire comes, and then they are so much passionate about their sadhana that other people see the superhuman effort and get a lot of inspiration. So once he also mentioned, he was literally pleading with all of us through addressing some devotees. He said, can you not do at least 1/16th of what I am doing? I mean, he was so keen to set an example. He said, I have done 16 parts. All you have to do is just take the name of the Lord. He literally pleaded with Girish. First he said, can you remember the Lord in the morning and the evening? And he was so adamant. He said, no, I can't do that. I can't promise you, because I used to drink a lot. So he said, sometimes I might just go to sleep. I may not even remember when I fall asleep. So I can't do that. Then he said, okay, at least once when you get up in the morning, can you remember God? He said, no, many times I get up after a very hangover of what I did on the previous night. I might have drunk so much that after the hangover I may not remember. I may forget to even repeat the name even once. So seeing the helplessness of Girish, Sri Ramakrishna of course bestows his grace upon him, but what I am saying is he used to plead. He says, okay, you can't do 16 parts of what. In those days, 1 rupee was divided into 16 annas. That was the measure. Anna, pice, and rupees, rupaya. So that was the British system, the multiple of 16. So he said, I will do 16 annas, 16 anna, and you do at least 1/16th of what I managed to do. Can you not do that? That was, so that desire to tell others and that desire to do 16 annas worth of sadhana and tell others that do at least 1/16th of what I did, that will be enough for you. So this desire to do their utmost to show to the world that if I can do so much, then you can do at least 1/16th of that. So, but then in the third paragraph, very clearly, Swami Shardanji says, when he does all this, when the incarnations do all this, there does not exist the slightest tinge of selfishness in that desire of the incarnations of God. There's no selfish desire in that. They are purely unselfish. They do japa for others, they demonstrate these things to others, not because they want to be recognized as great people, because they genuinely love their disciples, they genuinely love their devotees. They are so much concerned, they literally fold their hands and beg of the disciples that you do something at least. It's because of they have their welfare of the disciples in mind that they give up all their ego. There's no selfishness in telling other people to do. And they do for others. Holy Mother, if you see, somebody asked her, why do you need to do so much japa? You are Divine Mother herself. She says, I know so many of my disciples have taken Diksha, but they are not doing japa. So I do for them because I have taken their responsibility. If they don't do, it will cause them great harm. Because they say that when we get some kind of, we do take some kind of undertaking and promise that we will be doing such and such a thing as instructed by the Guru. Holy Mother knew that many of her disciples would not take the sadhana seriously. So they don't do the sadhana out of selfishness. That's what Swami Shardanji says. And especially incarnations, they do just for the welfare of humanity. So then he says, not to speak of they are not having any yearning for the enjoyment and for petty pleasures of the senses here or hereafter. Even the idea that they themselves might become liberated and enjoy the infinite bliss irrespective of others' fate does not exist in them. They forget the gross desires that I should have these petty pleasures of the senses. That not only that does not exist in their, when you say selfish, they are so unselfish that not only for things of the world they are unselfish, but they are so unselfish that they even sacrifice their own mukti. The fact that they can live, that is why Swami Vivekananda was scolded by his guru, Sri Ramakrishna. When Naren was asked, what do you want? He said, my goal is to remain in Samadhi and enjoy the bliss of Brahman. So Sri Ramakrishna got angry with him. How can you be so selfish? So the greater the soul, the more evolved a soul, or a guru, or a holy person, or an incarnation, you will find that they are more and more unselfishness. That's why Swami Vivekananda, when he was asked to define God, he said, unselfishness is God. If you are more unselfish, you are nearer to God. If you are perfectly unselfish like Buddha, as he said, and Sri Ramakrishna and all the great incarnations, they sacrifice their lives for others. They are the most unselfish people existing in this world. So he says not only they are unselfish about the things of the world, but even the spiritual things, they said, okay, we will let go of mukti. Swamiji in fact said that towards the end of his life. I may find it easy to throw away this body like a disused garment, but no, I will continue to work in the subtle body, of course, till everybody is one with God. So see the amount of unselfishness he had. It doesn't only say that till all my disciples realize God, I will wait. No, he said till every soul in this universe is ready to wait and take all along with him. That is the kind of unselfishness these incarnations have. So we'll just conclude today. I started late, that's why I just took 10 minutes more. If there are some questions you can ask very quickly, otherwise we will conclude today. So this is Sri Ramakrishna, the great master. We have come to the sadhaka bhava, where the characteristics of God as sadhaka, of Ishvara or of incarnations as sadhaka. We know them in the Guru Bhav, we know them as gurus of several disciples, sannyasin disciples, householder disciples, all types of people come to them. But when you talk of the sadhana parva or the sadhana part of their lives, they are just trying to set an example before sadhakas, how we should conduct ourselves in our life. Maybe we can, even if we do 1/16th of what they do, that is what they come. They set an ideal, a perfect ideal. What a perfect sadhaka should be, what is perfect unselfishness. We may not be able to do 100%, but a small percentage also, seeing them struggle the way they do, the way they did in the past, perhaps inspires us to do the same thing and do at least a fraction of what they did to make our lives blessed. Yes, now there is a question. Is renouncing the small self to the divine self, Sri Ramakrishna, a way to unselfishness? Yes, definitely. When that is what he did in his own life. He said, my will, let my will. Jesus, in fact, in the Bible, he says, let thy will prevail, O God. That is how most of the disciples of Christ, they wanted the will of Christ to prevail. I mean, their God, whom they considered as God or the Father in heaven, let his will prevail rather than us. So, renouncing the small self, that selfish ego, and lay it at the altar of the divine self or Sri Ramakrishna or any other incarnation, if it is a way to unselfishness, because we are giving up the smaller selfishness and merging ourselves with that divine self which is perfectly unselfish. We begin with little selfishness, we become more and more unselfish, we come nearer and nearer to God. So it's a very good question. By renouncing the small self, the petty self, that I am a rich man, I am a poor man, I am an educated man, I am this, I am that. So many things we use. The small ego comes to the forefront. But every time you renounce the small self and lay it at the altar of the divine self, then you become more and more unselfish and you come nearer and nearer to the kingdom of heaven or to the Father who is in heaven, whose will we are all supposed to carry out. So every tradition believes in surrendering this petty ego at the altar of the greater self, which is Ishvara or the Brahman or whatever you may, or God in heaven, anything, Father in heaven. These are different names of the same reality. Surrendering to that is the way of the spiritual masters. So I'll conclude. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.